Welcome everyone to Discover This. Some of you may have seen this picture on the internet. A gal by the name of Phyllis Stalnaker. And it's an old mugshot where she's labeled as a tramp. Well, today we're going to try and find out who is Phyllis Stalnaker and how did she come to be arrested by the San Diego Police Department and get this label. So let's check it out. Now, Phyllis was born on October 13th, 1925, somewhere in Nebraska. And eventually the family moved out to Southern California. And eventually they moved here to 4505 Contour Boulevard in San Diego. And this is the house Phyllis grew up in. We don't know much about her life here, like where she went to school and things, but this is where she lived. Around October 3rd, 1940, when Phyllis was 15, she was horseback riding here on Euclid Avenue, somewhere between Whiteman, right here, this intersection, and Auburn, right up there, the very next intersection. So somewhere along this stretch here, she was horseback riding. And yeah, there was a guy down here who had horses, and you could, I don't know if you had to rent them or he just let you ride them, but this wasn't as dense as it was here with housing and whatnot. But somewhere in here, she was riding the horse, and the horse threw her. And she was seriously injured. And she was taken to the hospital, and the horse ran off. And they spent quite a few days looking for the horse, and I'm not sure if they ever found the horse or not. But Phyllis was in the hospital for at least a couple weeks before being allowed to go home. Now, it was 4 years after this incident when Phyllis was arrested by the San Diego Police Department and labeled as a tramp. Now, as we've seen, Phyllis was arrested for being a weedhead and a tramp. Now, tramp back in that day was the same thing as like transient, vagrant, hobo, somebody loitering way too long, that kind of a thing. But the actual California Penal Code she was arrested for was 647E. And you can see the verbiage here, but it basically means the police didn't like her being where she was. Maybe she was hanging out too long. But who knows? We don't know where she was arrested exactly, or what she was doing there, or how she even got there. Now, in later years, the U.S. Supreme Court declared that California Penal Code 647E to be unconstitutional. So, but back in the day, tramp basically meant vagrant. And you can see some old TV shows. An example would be the Andy Griffith Show. There was an episode where Buddy Ebsen, you know, old Jed Clampett, well, he had a part in one of the Andy Griffith Show episodes, and he was a tramp, and Opie and Barney even referred to him as a tramp in that episode. So that's just the terminology from back then. But nowadays, has a few different meanings, so that's where we're at with that. Now, at some point in time, Phyllis married a gentleman by the name of James Harris, and they moved here to Lemon Grove, California. Specifically, Phyllis and her husband, James Harris, lived here at 7575 Pacific Avenue, and this is where she would spend the rest of her life. It doesn't appear they had any children, and we don't know how she spent her life, whether she worked or not or whatever. But Phyllis died on January 2nd, 1961 in a hospital, and unknown why she was admitted. But besides her husband, she was survived by her mother and 3 brothers, all of whom lived in Lemon Grove. Now, Phyllis's funeral was held here at what was the Conrad Lemon Grove Mortuary on Broadway in Lemon Grove. Been closed for quite a long time. But this is where her funeral service was held. More New Yorkers moving to San Diego. Now, Phyllis is laid to rest here in Mount Hope Cemetery in San Diego, California. And she's buried right next to her mother, who passed away many years after her. But rest in peace, Phyllis Stalnaker. So that's going to do it for this really short story about the life of Phyllis Stalnaker, the woman behind the mugshot that you see on the internet. So now next time you see that photo, you have at least a little bit of a background about her life, a very minuscule amount. But that's all we could find. So that's going to do it for today. Appreciate you watching, and we will see you next time on Discover This.